Pigafetta around 1491 when he was born in Vicenza, Republic of Venice, or was known now as Italy, and died at the age of 39 and 40 around 1531. He studied astronomy, geography, and cartography, an Italian scholar and explorer from the Republic of Venice. He traveled with Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew on the first voyage around the world. The island's sovereign ruler was Raja Sahaju when Magellan and comrades set foot in the grounds of Limasawa. He befriended the Raja together with his brother Raja Colombo of Butuan. In those days, it was customary among the indigenous and in most Southern Asia to seal friendship with blood compact. On instigation of Magellan, who had heard of Malayan term for it, Kasi-Kasi, the new friend performed the ritual. This was the first recorded blood compact between Filipinos and Spaniards. Gifts were exchanged by the two parties when the celebration has ended. The first Catholic Mass in the Philippines was on Easter Sunday of March 31, 1521, officiated by Father Pedro de Valderrama in the shore of town island named Limasawa, in the tip of southern Leyte. Limasawa is dubbed as the birthplace of Roman Catholicism in the Philippines.
Blood compact, customary among the indigenous of the most of Southeast Asia to seal friendship with the blood compact. This is the first recorded blood compact between Philippines and Spaniards. The island's sovereign ruler was Abraham Colombo when Magellan and Comodres set foot on the ground of Magellan. He best friend the Raja together with his brother Raja Sejo of Butuan. In those days, it was customary among the indigenous and the most of Southeast Asia to seal friendship with a blood compact on instigations of Magellan, who had heard the Malayan terms for it. Kasi-Kasi, the new French performed the ritual. This was the first recorded blood compact between Filipinos and Spanish gifts were exchanged by the two parties when the celebrated had ended. Planting of the cross. Magellan instructed his commanders to plant large wooden cross on the top of the hills overlooking the sea. Magellan then took ownership of the islands where he had landed in the name King Charles, which he had named earlier on March 16th archipelago of St. Lazarus. Planting of the first 501 years ago on March 31, 1521, Captain Ferdinand Magellan set up the first cross of the Christian faith at the top of the highest mountain of the Limasawa Islands as a customary symbol of worship and device protection from the dangers beyond the human culture, especially to the natural calamities. Limasawa celebrates the historic and religious coming of the Spaniard every March 31 with its cultural representation and anniversary program that as a Siniguan, meaning beginning. On these islands, Ferdinand Magellan first made extensive contact with Filipino natives on March 28, 1521. There are also the first Roman Catholic Mass was celebrated March 31, 1521 in the Philippines.
Ang bayan kong Pilipinas, lupain.
The Cavite Mountaineer. What do you know about Cavite Mountaineer? Do you know these people? What were their participation in the mutiny? How were they involved? What happened in the Cavite Mutiny? Cavite Mutiny is one of the most significant historical accounts in the Philippines history. It described the uprising of the Filipino troops and workers at the Cavite arsenals due to the removal of the privileged exemption from the tributes exemption from forced labor. Exemptions from the tribute taxations. Filipino paid tax to Spain. Tribute or tributo, the Filipino were compelled to pay tribute called tributo to a colonial government. The tribute was exposed as a sign of the Filipino loyalty to the King of Spain. Those who paid tribute were individuals between 16 to 60 years old. 1571 to 1884 released 1 peso per year. Other forms of payment, gold, chickens, textiles, cotton, and rice. Cedula, personal identification paper. In 1984, tribute was modified as replacement by the cedula. The cedula was a certificate identifying the taxpayer. It recorded his name, age, birthplace, marital status, occupations, place of residency, nationality, and sex. C. Demos Predales or Tenes. The Demos Predales was a tax consisting 1/10 of the produce of the one's land. Exceptions from the forced labor, all male Filipino from 18 to 60 years old age were required to give their free labor called polo to the government. This labor was for 40 days a year, reduced in 15 days in 1884.
Obligated to do the construction of buildings, the construction of churches, cutting trees to make logs. This labor was for 40 days a year. They are supposed to be paid one-fourth release. The workers were called polistas. In 1884, the number of days was lessened to 15 days per year. A number of Filipinos intellectuals were seized and accused of complicity with mountaineers. After a brief trial, three priests, Jose Burgos, Jacinto Zamora, and Mariano Gomez, were publicly executed. Tragically, the harsh reaction of the Spanish authorities served ultimately to promote the nationalist cause. The two major events happened in 1872. First was the 1872 Cavite Mutiny. Second was the martyrdom of the three martyr priests in the person of Father Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora or Gomburza, which is the awakening nationalism among the Filipinos. In 1872, Cavite Mutiny, which is the Spanish perspective, account of Governor-General Rafael Izquierdo Y. Gutierrez. Native clergy attracted support by giving the charismatics assurance that their fight would not fail because they had God's support. Aside from promises of lofty rewards such employment, wealth, and ranks in army, he insisted that the mutiny is stimulated and prepared by the native clergy, mestizos, and lawyers as a signal of objection against the injustices of the government, such as not paying provinces for tobacco crops, pay tribute, and reading ring of forced labor. It is not clearly identified if Indios plan to inaugurate a monarchy or a republic because they don't have word in their own language to describe this different form of government, whose leader in the Filipinos we called Hari. However, it turned out that they would set the supreme of the government apprised that the leader selected would be Jose Burgos or Jacinto Zamora, which is the plan of rebels who guided them, and the means they counted upon its realization.
History. In February 17, 1872, Father Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, in short Gumburza, all Filipino priests, was executed by the Spanish colonizer on charges of subversion. The death of Gumburza awakened strong feelings and anger and resentment among the Filipinos. They questioned Spanish authorities and demanded reform. The martyrdom of the three priests apparently helped to inspire the organization of the propaganda movement. Members of the propaganda movement were called propagandas of reformers. Their objectives were to seek the recognition of the Philippines as a province of Spain, equal status for both Filipinos and Spaniards. The Philippines represent in the Spanish Cortes, secularization of the Philippines parishes, recognition of human rights. Father Mariano Gomez. The death of Father Mariano Gomez. Gomez was accused of treason, sedition, and taking active part in the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. Before his death, Gomez was active in the publication of the newspaper, in Spanish, La Verdad, in English, The Truth. Father Jose Burgos. Death of Father Jose Burgos. After the Cavite Mutiny on January 20, 1872, the trial of mutineer Sergeant Bonifacio Octoba revealed that a man named Zualda had been recruiting people for uprising. Octoba testified that his man claimed to be under the order of Burgos, but inconsistent details during Octoba's cross-examination called into question the validity of his testimony. Nevertheless, Governor General Rafael Escudero reported to Madrid that the testimony had confirmed his suspicion and pinned the blame of Burgos and two other priests, Jacinto Zamora and Mariano Gomez, for sedition. Father Jacinto Zamora. Death of Father Jacinto Zamora. Once he received an invitation stating that his friend had powder and munition, in a gambler language, powder and munition mean that player had much money to gamble with. This invitation fell into the hands of the Spaniards, and worse, it was on the night of the Cavite Mutiny led by the Filipino soldiers. Sergeant La Madrid, this invitation was used by the Spaniards as evidence against the three priests. The court accused them on inciting the revolt, even though the evidence was not adequate. They were found guilty and sentenced to death by garrote. Unrevealing the truth. Considering the four accounts of the 1872 mutiny, there were some basis facts that remain to be unvarying. First, there was dissatisfaction among the worker of the arsenal as well as the member of the native army after their privileges were done back by General Escudero. The second, General Escudero, introduced rigid and strict policies that made the Filipinos move to turn away from Spanish government out of disgust. Third, the central government failed to conduct an investigation on what truly transferred but relied on report of Escudero and the praise of the opinions of the public.
Fourth, the happy days of the fairs were already numbered in 1872 when the central government in its best decided to deprive them of the power of the interference in the government affairs as well in the directions and management of the schools, but print them to commit practice moves to extend their stay in power. Fifth, the Filipino clergy member actively participate in the secularization movement in order to allow Filipino press to take hold of the parishes in the country, making them prey to the rage of the fairs.
6. The Filipino during that time were active participants and responded to what they demands in injustices.
Lastly, the execution of Gumburza was a mistake on the part of the Spanish government, for their actions severed to ill feeling of the Filipinos and that even inspired Filipinos patriots to call the reform and eventual independence.
Tayuhan ay nahalina, bayan ko, binihag ka, nasadlak sa dusa.
The Philippines Revolution began in 1896 and really ended only in 1901. At first, it was a war of independence against the Spain. Later, it turned into a war of independence against the United States. The first part of revolution was success. Many of our best heroes were killed during the revolution. On August 13, 1896, Father Agustin Hernandez wrote to Don Manuel Luengo, the civil governor of Manila, about the evening gathering in his parish. August 19, 1896, Katipunan was finally discovered by the betrayal of Teodoro Pateno to Father Mariano Gil. After the discovery of the Katipunan, Bonifacio gathered his men in the hills of Balintawak. Balintawak was the place north of Manila, which was then a secret meeting place of the Katipuneros. The Spanish cazadores began of making hundreds of arrests. Many of them died in suffocation. August 21 to 22, Bonifacio called for a meeting at the house of Vidal Acab, then the residence of Apolonio Samson in Kangkong, Caloocan. Cedulas Personales, August 23, Bonifacio and Jacinto meet at Bahay Toro, Pugadlawin, Balintawak, and gathered at the residence of Melchora Aquino on August 22, 1896. The fiery Bonifacio stopped all the talking. There is no other way, he told them. Enough is enough. He angrily tore his residence certificate, Cedulas Personales. It was the symbol of the Spanish oppression of Filipinos. Also, their tore cedulas, they called for a revolution. The Katipuneros, led by Bonifacio, started the revolution, cry of Pugadlawin. The first battle of the revolution took place at the town of San Juan del Monte at dawn of Sunday, August 30, 1986. Bonifacio and some 1,000 Katipuneros attacked the Spanish arsenal at San Juan. It was a bloody, awful battle. The Filipinos were armed only with a bolos, a few handmade gun, or it calls paltiks, old rifles, bamboo spears, and amulets, or in short, anting-anting. Battle of Pinaglabanan, the superior weapon of the Spanish armed force, won the day. The Filipinos lost and retreated. They left 153 died comrades behind. The revolution quickly spread like wildfire in southern Luzon. The Spanish governor, General Ramon Blanco, declared a state of war in 8 provinces: Manila, Bulacan, Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, Tarlac, Laguna, Cavite, and Batangas. On August 30, 1896, the Spanish officials terrorized the Filipinos and executed many of their famous leaders. On September 4, 4 members of the Katipunan were executed at Bagong Bayan. On September 12, 13 were put to death at Plaza de Armas, Los Martires. Many Filipino patriots were arrested and put in prison at Fort Santiago. About 1,000 Filipinos were exiled to Guam, Africa, and other Spanish prisoners abroad. The martyrdom of their leaders were made the Filipinos more angry at the Spanish officials. Jose Protasio Mercado Rizal y Alonzo Rialonda, our popular known as Jose Rizal, was a Filipino nationalist during the tail end of the Spanish colonial period of the Philippines. Born June 19, 1861, Calamba, Laguna. Siblings, Pasiano Rizal, Saturnina Hidalgo, Concepcion Mercado, and more. Parents, Teodora Alonzo and Francisco Mercado. Nickname, Jose P. Rizal or Pepe or Dr. Jose Rizal. Rizal was allowed to leave the Dapitan and go to Cuba as a volunteer doctor in the Spain Army. He was arrested and taken back to Manila. He was put in prison at Fort Santiago and tried by the military court. He was found guilty of being a traitor to Spain and sentenced to death. At dawn of September 30, 1896 at 7:30 a.m., Rizal was shot by a firing squad at the Luneta. Thousands of Filipinos were inspired to join the revolution in the nearby provinces. The Filipinos revolutionaries captured Las Piñas, Parañaque, and other towns around Manila. The revolutionaries was divided into two, the Magdalos Aguinaldo group and the Magdiwang Bonifacio group. Aguinaldo win his battle while Bonifacio lost all his battle. Bonifacio's supporters refused to help Aguinaldo's when they were attacked similarly. Aguinaldo's followers did not help the Magdiwang when they fought the Spaniards. The Filipinos freedom fighter fought with crude weapons, bolos, clubs, stones, bamboo spears, old muskets, and homemade guns or paltiks. The Filipinos won many battles against the Spanish government troops. The greatest victory in the Battle of the Filipinos was won by the Emilio Aguinaldo in the Battle of Binakayan, Cavite on November 9 to 11 in 1896. Peace was proclaimed in the Philippines after the Pact of Biak na Bato. General Aguinaldo and other revolutionary leaders went to exile in Hong Kong as a part of agreement. Pedro Paterno Aguinaldo and his companions reached at Hong Kong on December 30, 1897. Woman of the Revolution Melchora Aquino, popular known as Tandang Sora, Gregoria Montoya, Joan of Arc of Cavite, Aguida Kahabagan, Joan of Arc of the San Cruz, Laguna, Teresa Magbanwa, Joan Arc of Visayas, Trinidad Section, and Mother of Biak na Bato, Florence Nightingale of Panay, Patronia Gamboa, Herion of Haro, Marcela Agoncilla, wife of the Filipino diplomat Felipe Agoncillo. Both the Filipinos and Spaniards broke their peace agreement at Biak na Bato. Spain did not pay 1.7 million pesos war indemnity to the Filipinos. Only 600,000 was paid. Spanish officials continued to arrest and punish Filipinos who surrendered. During the Philippines Revolution, thousands of Filipinos have given and sacrificed their life for the independence of our country. Blood and sweat are given by them in order to have our independence. They fight for our country and their fellow men. This is why we have our heroes. They are the one that give us the way for peace. So as a citizen of our country, we must have patriotism. We must love and fight for our country over those people that make our country be in poverty. We must help each other like the soldiers do during the wars in the revolution. We must stand in the success and development of our native land, Philippines.
Ang bayan kong Pilipinas, lupain ng ginto't bulaklak, pag-ibig na sa kanyang palak, nag-alay ng ganda't dilag, at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Bayan ko, binihag ka, nasadlak sa dusa. Ibon mang may layang lumipad, kulungin mo at umiiyak. Bayan pa kayang sakdal dilag, ang di magnasang makaalpas. Pilipinas kong minumutya, pugad ng luha at dalita, aking adhika, makita kang sakdal